Fall 2021. My relationship with the ODE Gen 2 would be forever changed. And it's time you know the truth. Now you've probably noticed, and many of you have commented this, that I have not made a review of the fellow ODE Gen 2. And the reason is pretty good, I think. It's because I have an inherent bias and I just didn't feel comfortable making a review early on when other people were making reviews. I did not want to immediately put a bias into you, the viewer, because of the relationship I have with this. Now, it is not a monetary relationship, so there's no financial incentive, but we'll get to it in just a second. Now, I'm gonna post some reviews that other creators have done down below because this won't really be a full-blown review. It's just gonna kind of highlight some of the things about this Gen 2 if this is the first review you're seeing, but I advise you check some of those out for further thoughts. Now, before jumping into this truth that you need to know, I'm gonna quickly go over kind of the changes that happened between Gen 1 and Gen 2 and why, and what my thoughts are on Gen 2 in general, and whether or not you need to upgrade your Gen 1 or this should be your first grinder or whatever it might be. So the first big change they made between the first gen and the second gen is the hopper. It's a bigger hopper, it's taller with more aggressive angles for the feed rate of the beans into the auger itself. So when you open it up, it can actually hold enough beans to brew a 1.5 liter batch brew, which was kind of the goal of Nick, the designer there at Fellow. Now what they didn't do is they didn't fix one of the issues that I hate about it, which is this little lid. I wish there was a rim around the whole thing that was deep enough for it to actually sit in there pretty nicely. I hate how it just kind of like... Second big thing is they increase the tolerances on the insides so that you can achieve hyperalignment much more easily than on the Gen 1, which is actually a great thing for a lot of people. It also can fit all the 64mm burr sets. Some of those SSP burrs, which are those burrs made in South Korea by Hoffmann, some of those were too big to fit in some of the Gen 1 ODEs. So they made sure that the tolerances were tighter here in order to achieve better alignment, finer grinding, as well as fitting all these different burrs. And then the last big change they made is they added an ionizer and changed the geometry of the output, of the chute down at the bottom. So what you have here is you have this incredible technology that I hope is adopted by all these other grinders out there that just kills the static. So as you'll see in the Hoffmann video I've posted below in the caption, he has a video to kind of see the Gen 1 versus the Gen 2 RDT, which is like a spritz of water, versus non-RDT on both. And you can see visually how that affects. Now, in general, you want to use RDT for all of these grinders that produce a lot of static. RDT is called the Ross droplet technique. It's just a little bit of water added to your beans prior to grinding, kills the static, and allows for a cleaner grind without chaff and fines flying everywhere. So what they did with this is they wanted to render that pointless. They don't want you to have to use RDT. They want you to just be able to dump in dry beans and get out a nice clean dose. Now, whether or not that's $50 worth of changes, you know, the burr set is the last big thing they changed, and I think this is kind of the crux of the change between the two, but of course you can always buy the burr set and retrofit it to Gen 1, no problem. $349 price tag, it's a big difference when you go from $299, so a sub $300 grinder, to a mid $300 grinder. That's a big jump, and that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. I still think it is by far the best filter grinder at that price point, without question. I'm taking this over everything at that price point. I'm taking it over the Lego Mini, I'm taking it over the Varia VS3, I'm taking it over the Encore, I'm taking it over the Opus, I'm taking it over everything in that rough price range for filter. Okay, like no question. That is a difficult thing. It's higher now. I alluded to the fall of 2021. That is when I received one of only 2 sets of burrs in existence, a prototype of the Gen 2 burr from Nick over at Fellow. Immediately as I started to benchmark it against other burrs that were actually cheaper burrs, like the Forte, the Didding steel burrs, and the what I call the Gevi burrs, the burr set that is made from an anonymous manufacturer in China, but was adopted for the Gevi 2-in-1 brewer that I really like. When I was benchmarking it against those, the original prototypes were losing consistently in terms of clarity, acidity. It was just not doing very well. And I was telling Nick, listen, you want these to at least be able to be on par with these other burr sets. Right now, they're not as good. Right now, they taste like a cheap conical burr, and I just really didn't like them. And so I actually was making a trip to San Francisco to attend a coffee festival out there. So I went and visited Nick at Fellows headquarters, and I set up a double-blind cupping for him. He tasted all these and immediately said, I know which ones are my burrs. I said, which ones? This one, and this one. All credit to Nick, because this guy just, he is awesome. I can't sing his praises enough. He immediately calls the factory to halt production of the burrs that they were going to go forward with. And obviously this was a huge issue for Fellow that they were not stoked about, but they were committed to giving the best quality to their customers, which I think is just an incredible thing to do. They were literally going forward with production and halted it, which pissed off some people on the other end of the spectrum. Then we started to make changes to the burrs. And over the months, I got some different prototypes, and I was really looking for something with nice clarity, nice body, nice sweetness, kind of an ideal burr set for anyone on any part of the spectrum, from light to dark roast. You're gonna get a good cup that you like. And I was benchmarking it against, a lot of burr sets. I like burrs, okay? I got all these burrs. These are all single burrs from different sets that I have. So I was benchmarking them against Gorilla Gear, against the SSP cast burrs, against the SSP multi-purpose, the SSP HU, that's the Gorilla Gear. This was a towel mill, sorry. I was barely looking. And then I had some cheap ones that I found on AliExpress that, actually this one was pretty good. And one day, Nick sends me 3 burr sets, labeled 22, 23, 24. And he says, I want you to try these and see, where I'm going with it. We talked a lot about changing the amount of pre-breakers, about how many cut sections, if we even have finishing teeth. We chatted about all of these different variables that are just guesswork in the burr world, because there's no real conclusive studies that show having this many pre-breakers causes this. You're just kind of guessing. And so he sends me these, and he's still kind of, dejected about how we had to stop production. And I'm tasting through these. And I remember being very skeptical, specifically on 23, because it looked so similar to the towel mill burr. I said, the 23 doesn't look that great. And he goes, actually, that might surprise you, but go ahead and try it. I don't think any of these are winners, but I just wanted you to taste these. And I was shocked. The one that I chose was giving me that cup I was searching for, even against all these other burrs. Even with multiple different coffees, even at high extractions, low extractions, my mind was blown. It was sweet, it had clarity, it had body. It was just a fantastic cup. Did it beat my favorite burr, which is the SSP multipurpose? No, but that's because I'm biased. I like the cups this provides. For a lot of people, I think this certain burr would have beat that. We have the burr set. Number 23, what I thought was the winner. Nick was very skeptical, but it's because he's so humble. He just couldn't believe that he hit something that beat some of the burrs I told him it beat. And so then he tasted it and tasted it again and again and again. And just, I guess there was a part of him that didn't want to believe that we had reached that final bit. And crazily, after my recommendation on this burr, within just a few weeks, they had decided to make this the Gen 2 burr. I did not want to make a review because there was no benefit for me to say that I helped make them. And I know I've kind of carved myself as a burr person, and so I knew that would, probably incentivize a lot of you to buy it. But I didn't want to put that out early on. I wanted other people to give their reviews, because if you hear that from me, it might make you, partially deaf to the things that other reviewers are saying if they dislike certain things. So I wanted to wait. And now that James, made his video and he talked about my part in making these burrs, I felt, okay, it's time to kind of reveal that. It's been out long enough. The people who've got it, it's not because of me, and maybe people want to get it now because of these burrs, or maybe you just want to buy these burrs. If you want to get these for like, they're like $80 US. It's a fantastic budget burr that does an incredible job. I think they're fantastic. I'm gonna brew a cup and we'll just talk about kind of the taste notes and we'll just end the video there. Durch, durch! Nice. Just like the mama always told me it would be. Delicious. Okay, so we got, dang it, I spilled a little bit. It was still impressive though. This is a really lightly roasted coffee. It's a Tim Wendelbo Kenya, a washed Kenya, but I'm still able to get a lot of sweetness. I'm still able to get some body, and it gives me a lot of the clarity and acidity that I'm looking for in a cup of coffee. Now, I've also brewed darker roasted coffees, and I'm able to get nice sweetness, nice body, and I'm able to get some of that acidity that's in there. Just good coffees. Hit that like, hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bells for notification. Anyway, I hope that you brew something tasty, as I just did, and cheers.